Hi, ladies and gentlemen. I'm John Munsell, the host, the producer, and the creator of this program called Communicating Today. We've been on Channel 10 for a long, long time. For over 20 years, we're rapidly approaching show number 600, which we will achieve sometime later on this year. We've had many interesting guests and organizations on our show in the past, and I know that tonight will be absolutely no exception. But before I tell you that, let me tell you that we come on 3 times every week, every Wednesday evening in prime time at 8:30 p.m., every Friday morning for you early birds as you're driving to work in the morning and you probably can't see my show, and every Sunday afternoon at 3:30 during the Redskins games when you probably can't see my program either. But we hope there aren't legions of you who do that and you watch our show on a regular basis. Now tonight I'm extremely proud and thrilled to have a wonderful organization on our show on Communicating Today. These folks are called the Military Order of the Purple Heart. And in order to belong to this organization, you have to have been wounded and shed blood for your country in the armed services in combat against the enemies of the United States of America. And these 3 gentlemen that we have on our show tonight have done exactly that. And they are so pleased and punched to have them on our program. Let me introduce my guests for you, ladies and gentlemen, sitting right alongside of me here. This small gentleman, he looks like he would outdo me a little bit here. Fred Taylor is his name. He's the past national commander and member of the board of directors for the Military Order of the Purple Heart Service Foundation. Sitting next to Fred, we have Mr. Frank Van Hoy, who is the National Service Director for the Military Order of the Purple Heart. And on the far end, not least of which, we have Mr. John Bircher, who is the National Public Relations Director for the Military Order of the Purple Heart. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on our program on Communicating Today. I'm so pleased and proud as punch to have you guys on our show representing this wonderful organization.
Well, John, let me just say that on behalf of the Military Order of the Purple Heart Service Foundation, it is a privilege to be here tonight, and thank you for the invitation.
Well, you're quite welcome, absolutely, Fred, and that's for sure. Now, I guess we ought to get started right here and let the folks at home know a little bit about when and where and how this wonderful organization got started. I don't know who wants to volunteer that information.
Well, I'll start and then I'll pass the baton. How about
right.
that?
Let's make this a free-for-all. Anytime anybody has something to say and add to the program, just jump right in and we'll just have it kind of a free-for-all.
The Military Order of the Purple Heart Service Foundation is a fundraising organization. We raise money to give to other organizations to do programs on behalf of veterans. We were founded in 1958.
Right. Okay, and how large is how many members do you have in your organization?
Well, we don't have members. Our membership mainly is comprised of past national commanders of the Military Order of the Purple Heart, and once they're done, they will go to work with us as volunteers at the foundation.
Now, there's a national organization, which I think you mentioned before the program, Fred, located right here in Springfield, Virginia. And then you have, a number of chapters located around the country, and you have a local chapter. And you guys represent the local chapter here, in Northern Virginia, not the national headquarters. Is that right?
Well, actually, John and Frank represent the Military Order of the Purple Heart here tonight.
National headquarters.
Oh, the national headquarters. Right. Okay. And are there other chapters, locations located throughout the country besides what we have here in Northern Virginia?
Yeah, if I could actually, sort of two questions that you raised. One is we have about 45,000 members in our organization, and we're one of many veteran service organizations. Fortunately, we're the little guys, and I say fortunately because you don't want a lot of guys to have a Purple Heart. But when you compare us to the American Legion, another veteran service organization, or the VFW, we are the little guys. So it's really not so much about who we are, but about what we do. And I think we do a lot more for our veterans in this country than almost any other national veteran service organization. We are divided into departments, which are state headquarters, and then into chapters, which are in the local communities.
Right. Now, I know you have a lot of different programs that you guys offer. I know that I get a phone call every so often, every couple of months. Somebody calls my wife and I on the phone and says, would you like to donate some clothing and some merchandise from your home, or do you have a car that you would like to donate, or a boat or our vehicle, a recreational vehicle. And sometimes I say, yes, we have some clothing and so forth. We're going to be in your neighborhood in a couple of weeks, and can we put you down? And a truck will come by and pick up your donations, and we thank you very much. So you have the donation program. It's very popular, and I don't know whether you want to expound on that. I guess that's probably a significant fundraiser, I would
It's
think.
a very significant fundraiser, John, and we also have a car donation program, cars, boats, motorcycles. We collect clothes, and then we use these items that are donated by the public, and we get money from those items, and then we, in turn, give the money to our service program, and we've got service programs in almost every state in the United States. We have national service officers, who Frank represents here tonight, who serve our veterans at no fee. It costs nothing. Their families, their veterans, their children can all come in and get free service. And so that translates from our donations to service to veterans.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, who are the beneficiaries of all this wonderful care, that things that you folks do in our organization? Of course, the veterans that have been wounded, certainly, and I think John mentioned that there was a 45,000 or so members of.
Well, that's the members of our organization.
Okay.
But we have a number of programs, all of which are funded by our Service Foundation. But the most important of which is our National Service Program. And we ought to let Frank tell you a little bit about our National Service Program.
If I may, thank you. Our National Service Program is located in just about every state in the United States, and we also have offices in Puerto Rico, Guam, Alaska, and Hawaii. So we're all over the United States. And these service officers that we have there and their assistants assist all veterans, not just Purple Heart members, but all veterans that are eligible for the benefits. We also assist their family members who are eligible for any kind of compensations and things like that, and educational benefits through the Department of Veterans Affairs. In addition, if the veteran is deceased, we can assist their survivors with our programs. As I said, we have about 147 service officers and a staff that are located throughout. And these folks represent about 52,000 veterans right now at the moment. And within that, for instance, just in the past 18 months alone, the service program has recouped in excess of $290 million in benefits and compensation on behalf of the veterans and their family members. And so we're extremely proud of our folks for that.
I know you have different kinds of programs. We just talked about several of them: the car donations, boat donations, clothing, merchandise, and so forth, when people come by in a truck and pick up that stuff. But I know that we were talking before the program, and you mentioned that there's a couple of other things going on. You have your national convention, which you usually hold sometime in the August-September time frame, moves around the country from one city and one state to another. You just had one recently this past August, and you're going to have another one coming up. And you mentioned, I think, John, and that's going to be when, the next convention?
Next convention's in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Minnesota.
In August.
In this year of 2011.
Right. And
Right.
And each year it moves around the country.
Right.
But one of the things we started doing this year that was a little bit different, we were talking about earlier, was trying to find yet another way that we could help our veterans. And so what we did this year was we mounted a major golf tournament, major fundraising golf tournament, to benefit the Polytrauma Center at the VA hospital in Tampa. I don't know if you're aware, but there are only 4 polytrauma centers in the country. And it just so happens that one of them was in Tampa and one of them's in Minnesota. So this year, again, our golf tournament in conjunction with our convention is going to benefit the Polytrauma Center. We were able to raise $50,000 last year for the young men and women who are in the polytrauma unit. And polytrauma is just that. It means that they've lost either one or more limbs plus a traumatic brain injury, and it's these kids are in pretty bad shape. And the money that we raised for them will help them with adaptive sports programs and things like that for these young men and women.
I know we were talking before the program, John, that there's something called PTSD, which stands for you guys educated me on that one, post-traumatic stress disorder. It seems to me that well, I guess that's kind of is that a mental or psychological kind of thing, or it actually can occur from a bomb explosion, or artillery or what have you, but who wants to explain a little bit about this so-called PTSD problem?
I'll start. PTSD can be caused by a lot of things, not necessarily or exclusively combat. We have a book called Tears of a Warrior that is invaluable, and we give this out free of charge to veterans who have PTSD. PTSD, John, could be caused by a car accident. It could be caused by a police officer in a police action. In our case, we primarily deal with combat wounded veterans or people who have experienced a traumatic combat scenario and then are affected emotionally by that.
If I may, you can take it a little bit further too with the PTSD. True, as Fred said, you have PTSD associated with combat, but there's other PTSD factors that come into play based on military service. Training accidents, believe it or not, sexual trauma in the military. You know, you have those types of things that are happening nowadays, and it can bring on PTSD. So there's a number of PTSD issues that can be service-connected, not just being in combat itself. For instance, I'll give you another example. A Graves registration veteran who is on a day-by-day basis handling the remains of those that have fallen. They actually develop PTSD also. So it's not just based on combat itself, but there are other factors that go along with it.
Yeah,
If I
right.
could, John, though,
Go ahead, John.
let me just say that the two signature wounds from this war that's going on, the war on terrorism, the two signature wounds are PTSD and traumatic brain injury, or TBI. And there's been a lot of debate over whether these kids coming back with PTSD should be awarded the Purple Heart. And DOD made a decision this year that they should not, that PTSD is curable, it is treatable with mental health, and so just getting PTSD is not, does not make
qualify
you
you.
eligible for the Purple Heart. But Fred made a good point earlier, and that is that because of the body armor these kids have now and all of the protection that go into the vehicles, and a lot of the kids that are coming back wounded now are coming back wounded, and they're not coming back dead. A lot of these kids would have died on the battlefield in the Second World War, Korean War, or Vietnam. And the last point I wanted to make about that, actually, was that PTSD is not something new. It just had different names. You know, in the Second World War, they called it combat fatigue. Or lots of times, these kids were accused of just malingering. Shell shock. So there have been a lot of names for it, but the common name today is PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. We've just gotten the warning that we've reached the midpoint in our program tonight, and we always try to reintroduce the show for those of you who may have tuned in late, and we hope there aren't legions of you who did that. I'm John Munsell. This is Communicating Today. We've been on Channel 10 for a long, long time. Come on 3 times every week, every Wednesday evening, every Friday morning, every Sunday afternoon for you Redskin fans. We have a terrific program for you tonight, a great organization. I'm so proud to have on this program tonight, ladies and gentlemen, terrific organization called the Military Order of the Purple Heart Service Foundation, dedicated to people who have shed blood, wounded in combat, in battle, fighting for our country in our various branches of the service, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and what have you. And there are 3 members on our program tonight. Let me reintroduce them again for you. Sitting right alongside of me here, we have Mr. Fred Taylor. In the middle, we have Frank Van Hoy. And on the far end over there, Mr. John Bircher. And John, I think before we went into break in the middle, you said you wanted to add a couple more things about a couple of other programs that you folks offer.
Well, as I mentioned, probably 95% of what we do is our national service program, but there are a lot of other programs that are funded by the Service Foundation that we also do. We have a Veteran Affairs Voluntary Service Program, and these are all volunteers, Military Order of the Purple Heart members, and also our Ladies Auxiliary has some 6,000 members who volunteer their times at the various medical centers, the clinics, and the VA has told us that as far as they're concerned, it's over a $2 million savings just in salaries alone for the hours that we put in assisting at the VA facilities. And another very important program to us is our Americanism program. We have members of the Military Order of the Purple Heart who will go into elementary schools, for example, talk to the kids about what it means to be a veteran, what it means to be a combat wounded veteran. And I've done that myself a number of times, and it's such a fulfilling thing to see the reaction of these kids. There's not much time spent these days on instilling patriotism and Americanism in our kids, and anything that we can do to advance that, I think, is an important thing. Finally, we have a MOPH scholarship program where this past year, for example, we had 83 kids who, we had many more, hundreds who applied, but we were able to give 83 $3,000 scholarships to
83?
83.
Wow, that's fantastic.
For an organization our size, it is fantastic. And $3,000 doesn't get them through school, but it gives them a good leg up. Maybe pays for some of those meals. There are so many of these small programs that are going on at the chapter level where the chapters are getting involved in their communities and they're doing service projects in their communities too. So, like I said, it's not really about what we are, who we are, it's about what we do, and we're doing it all across the country.
Well, John, I wanted to throw
Fred
in
wants to add something more.
I wanted to say that people often say, well, you got your thrift programs where we have our thrift stores, we have our car programs where people donate cars. What do you do with that money? On top of the programs we've already talked about, we also do things like a combat veteran from Iraq, his family let us know that he was basically housebound. We went out and we remodeled his house so that he could get in and out. He basically couldn't get out of the house because of his wound injuries. In Florida, that was in New Jersey. In Florida, we went down and gave 3 paraplegics IBOT wheelchairs. And IBOT wheelchairs allows them to be able to do many things, including climb steps. It's a gyro controlled. So this is some of the really neat things that we do, and the public should know.
That's wonderful. Now, you 3 guys, and I'm so happy and so pleased that you were able to come on our program representing this terrific organization. All 3 of you are here because you're members of the Military Order of the Purple Heart organization, and all 3 of you have been wounded and have bled for your country, the various branches of the service. And I asked you before the show if you'd like to take a moment or two, each one of you 3 guys, and I think you all said yes. Just take a moment or two and tell us a little bit about what happened to you, what you experienced when you were in, and most likely in the Vietnam era, I would think, based on the ages, I think I'm looking at you guys, we're all pretty much the same age bracket. But I guess if we want to start with you, Fred, tell us what happened to you in combat.
I served in the Army, United States Army, 1st Cavalry Division, Air Mobile. I was there in 1968. I was wounded on 3 occasions.
3 occasions?
Yes, sir. The first time I was wounded with 2 pieces of grenade shrapnel in my right leg, and then I was wounded in the thoracic spine, temporarily paralyzed, and then I was shot in both legs. I got shot with a 51 caliber machine gun through the left foot and an AK-47 through the right leg. And after that, I spent 6 months in the hospital.
It's amazing that you're sitting here tonight on our program on Communicating Today to tell us that story. Oh. You were very, very fortunate to even have a chance to survive. That was terrible. 3 times. That's unbelievable. And Frank, how about you?
I also served in the United States Army. In my first tour in 1968, I was with the 5th Special Forces Group in I Corps in Vietnam, and my injuries were sustained as a result of an 81 mortar round. Our camp was under attack, and I was severely wounded there, and eventually was medically evacuated all the way back to the United States. My second tour was in 1970. I decided walking wasn't the way to go, so I went to flight school. And so I went to flight school. In my second tour in Vietnam, I was flying helicopter gunships and took it around there and got another Purple Heart there. So
Jeez, that's amazing.
But I served out my second tour. I wasn't medevac back.
You guys are unbelievable. You guys are fantastic. And John, last but not least, come on, tell us what happened to you, buddy.
Well, ironically, I was Army too. All 3 of us were Army. I was also 5th Special Forces Group in Vietnam, 69 and 70. And my wound came as a result of a rocket attack on my camp and took some shrapnel in the leg. But I was a faster runner than these two guys. You'll notice he has 3, he has 2, I only have 1. So,
And let me just say that you have a particularly attractive pin on your lapel tonight.
I want you to move that camera up a little bit, see if you can get a little bit of a close-up. Before the show began, my good friend here, Fred Taylor, sitting alongside him here, said, John, we're going to make you an honorary member of our organization, the Military Order of the Purple Heart Service Foundation. Even though you didn't bleed for your country, you served your country a couple of years in the Army. I know you told us before the program. But we're going to pin this little symbol of our organization on your lapel. Wear it with honor and wear it with pride. And Fred and John and Frank, I'm so proud that you designated me to wear this pin. I will never take it off of this particular, I may change jackets, but as long as I wear this jacket, this pin will always stay on my lapel, and I'm so proud, and I thank you so much
Yes, sir.
for the...
But you know, John, it is movable. You can take it off and put
I
on other
can put it on.
jackets if you want. It's not stuck to that one.
If I know my
so.
wife, she'll take it off and put it on one of her jackets, you know.
Good.
But it's a wonderful symbol. Thank you so much, gentlemen. I really appreciate it. I just got a couple of minute warning here, so we're getting kind of down toward the end of the program. And I guess we ought to talk about something called volunteerism. Now, I guess like any other organization, we've had a lot of nonprofit organizations on our show over the years where they can only exist if people will volunteer their time, their energy, and their service, and certainly not the least of which their money. Occasionally, people put in their will that they're going to will a certain amount of money to a particular organization like your Military Order Purple Heart. That's not a bad idea. I'm sure you guys will agree with that. But what about volunteerism? What about people? And we're going to put up, in fact, I think we're putting up their website, ladies and gentlemen, as we do our program here. Let me mention it just in case you don't see it on the bottom of your screen. We got actually 2 websites for them. www.mophsf, it stands for .org, by the way, Military Order of the Purple Heart Service Foundation. And there's a second website, which you should also find at the bottom of your screen, called www.purpleheart.org. So either one of those 2 websites, phone numbers, contact information, all about their programs, all about the ways you can volunteer, all the ways you can donate money, your time, your effort, your energy, your love, and your spirit to a terrific organization like these guys represent here tonight. So don't hesitate to contact those websites, and you'll get a lot of terrific information from there. Volunteerism, pretty important thing, I guess. What do you guys say about the people volunteering their time and energy and services to you?
I'll start it and then we'll pass it down. We believe in putting our actions where our mouth is, and our board of directors is all volunteer. No one gets paid a penny. And so we lead by example, and then we ask for other people to volunteer with our organization at VA hospitals, VA clinics, et cetera.
And also, too, within the National Service Program, in the departments and chapters, we have volunteer national department and chapter service officers. And those service officers assist the paid staff, the National Service Officer staff, in helping veterans to link up with us so we can advocate them with their claims for the VA.
but if you really want to help our programs, we're not looking for individuals to volunteer along with us. We do the volunteering. What we're looking for is donations. If you can donate your car to Purple Heart, if you can donate your clothing to Purple Heart, those donations are what make it possible for us to do all of the wonderful things that we do for veterans.
And if they want to make a donation to us, we want people to know 92 cents on every dollar is going right to the veterans themselves.
And the donations are tax deductible.
Yes, sir, they are.
They are.
So there's another benefit there, too. I just got the 2-minute warning, guys. You know, in the football games and the NFL, all those wonderful games that we watch every Sunday afternoon, and we certainly just recently saw the Super Bowl, the referee gives the 2-minute warning, he waves the red flag, and he blows his whistle, says, guys, we've only got 2 minutes to go in the game. That's where we are now. In fact, less than 2 minutes now. Does anybody have any final comments or offers of suggestions or ideas or thoughts you want to leave with the folks who are watching our program here on Channel 10 here in Northern Virginia? Any final comments that anybody feels like they want to make to contribute to the end of the program, since we're running a little bit short on time?
I would just say this, that we are very grateful for the public's acknowledgement of the sacrifices that our veterans have made through their donations. We use that to do our veterans programs, and we thank the public from the bottom of our heart.
Frank, anything?
Yes, sir. I would encourage the public to go to www.purpleheart.org, click on the National Service Program, and you get a much better idea of what we're doing as far as the National Service Program goes. And it also has a link on there. They can find out where our service officers are located.
I think we're getting down near the end of the program, guys. I know that I'd love to give John a chance to put his 2 cents in there. I got the 1 minute warning. John, a couple of quick comments.
The only thing is, the reason our service program works is because veterans, when they get out of the military, don't know what they're entitled to. And that's where we fill in the blank. We tell them how to get what they're entitled to and where to go to get it.
Thank you, gentlemen. Fred Taylor sitting right alongside of me here, Frank Van Hoy sitting in the middle, and John Bircher on the far end. Thank you guys for coming on our program on Communicating Today, representing this fantastic organization, ladies and gentlemen, called the Military Order of the Purple Heart Service Foundation. You got to shed blood for your country before you can be on this in this organization, before you can come on this program to represent these guys tonight. We always go out. Thanks, gentlemen, so much for coming
Thank
on
you.
our program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.
Frank and Jim, John, all the way down the far end. We always go out by saying, keep on communicating for success, and wonderful organizations that I'm so proud to have had on our show tonight, the Military Order of the Purple Heart Service Foundation. Come back and see us again next week as we go out by saying, bye-bye.